This is PJNET.TV, and this is my perspective and comments. In this video segment of My Perspective and Comments, we cover politics, society here and abroad, and the events of the day that are shaping our nation. PJNET.TV, My Perspective and Comment, coming to you with a worldview, one nation under God. Hello and welcome to My Perspective and Comments. And I'd just like to go back here a couple weeks. We just came through an election and some updates to the results there, and I want to talk about the one race there in New Jersey. The New Jersey Senate President Stephen Sweeney, this about 2-3 days ago, conceded to the GOP trucker Edward Durr, who won that race, and that was a shocker. Here is Sweeney had been in New Jersey politics, and basically he was running the show there, and the voters said we've had enough. We've seen where New Jersey was going, and the mandates and the lockdowns, and they said they made a change there. And when you take a look at Murphy, governor there, just barely squeaked the win out there in New Jersey. I mean, a squeaker. In fact, he was losing there right up until, in fact, it wasn't until the next day that these votes all showed up, and Murphy ends up winning. But he definitely didn't win by any margin that would be considered comfortable at all. In fact, he squeaked the win there. So there is a final announcement there in New Jersey regarding that GOP truck driver who shocked them in that state of New Jersey. Republican Glenn Youngkin defeated the Clintons' bag man, Terry McAuliffe, and in Virginia. And also I want to point out there in Virginia, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears made history as the first African-American woman in Virginia to win a statewide race. And I want to talk about Virginia, and we mentioned this last week, but I just want to again come back to that election and actually what took place nationwide. But as I had mentioned before, parents. But when you look at what took place there in Virginia from the beginning of this year, things that were taking place in the school board, that critical race theory that was being pushed, and the school board pushing for transgenders getting access to all from sports to bathrooms, and allowing boys to go into to girls' bathrooms and locker rooms, and the parents came out and they were voicing their opinion on that wasn't the direction they want, but the school board pushed right on through. And then we also this past spring, what took place there in a student being attacked there in the bathroom, and parents were outraged. Father came in and he was outraged and wanted to discuss what took place, and they ended up the school board superintendent and the board basically brought the police in to because they didn't want he was upset, and he wanted to share, and they didn't want to hear it. And come to find out, reports started to come out that, what took place there in Virginia, the school board knew about it and didn't do anything. And that's what was troubling. And it was things like that, especially in Virginia, where parents, onlookers, taking a look at this Loudoun County and said, wait a minute, that could have been my child. And parents united and said, this isn't right. And a lot of the parents gathered together, and they made a statement. And that statement was that you're not going to make regulations and rules and overlook us and have our kids attacked, and that's all right. And the school board is going to just kind of brush it under the rug. And a parent said, no, you're not going to do that to our children. You're not going to put our children in danger. And what we saw playing out is that very same thing in many other states. School boards, there was a huge turnover where a lot of these critical race and these left-wing social justice initiatives, and especially parents noticing in what their children were seeing in or being taught in Zoom, where parents had the opportunity finally to actually see what some of these teachers were teaching, and they said, hey, this isn't, they've been teaching you this all along. And their children are saying, yeah, this is some of the curriculum that we've been getting. So there was a wake-up call, because parents were actually seeing what these teachers were trying to teach their kids. And then we had the libraries, and what parents were finding were in their children's libraries, and from pornography to things that you wouldn't allow to be in a school room, in a school library, were there, teaching them things that should definitely have been banned, and the parents had no idea what some of those books that were being allowed into their school. So that all those things coming together and seeing it taking place, not just in Loudoun County in Virginia, but you are seeing it all throughout this nation. And people in school boards, a lot of them that were pushing these curriculums and allowing this to take place, they were ousted. And so that was, I think, the takeaway that that many of the politicians need to take a look at. When it comes to parents and their children and the safety of their children, the parents were awakened, rose up and said, no, we're not voting for that, and we're not going to allow our kids to be subjected to a lot of the filth that's been going on and in the school system. So I think that would be a summary of what took place. There were a lot of positive gains that were made, and it should be, or it should have been, a wake-up call. But you heard the media and a lot of the leadership, Biden to Pelosi to Schumer, nothing to see here. Double down, we're going on with our agenda. So nothing really learned. They're gonna do what they're moving straight ahead, full steam ahead. And what took place in in the election. No, didn't faze him. In fact, you had excuses being made in the lamestream media regarding, well, these parents, they're kind of white supremacists, and that's why they voted the way they did. And this critical race theory, what are you talking about? There's no critical race theory. That's the media telling you what you're seeing happening in your school isn't really happening. I guess you can't believe your lying eyes is what the media is trying to push. But parents around the nation have said, no, we don't want this. And that has been the statement. I'd like to talk about the Biden mandates and how he has shifted, not really coming out with legislation, just a dictate and an order. And what he wants to do is have employers do his dirty work, and he's going to use OSHA, the Department of Labor, Occupation Safety and Health Administration. Yes, OSHA is going to develop, and what he's pushing OSHA to do is develop rules that will require employers with 100 or more employees to ensure their workforce is fully vaccinated, or require any workers who remain unvaccinated to produce a negative test result at least once a week or on a weekly basis to come to work. OSHA will issue an emergency temporary standard to implement this requirement. This requirement will impact over 80 million private sector workers. And that's with businesses with 100 or more employees. And already there's been many states that have pushed back. In fact, Ben Shapiro from the Daily Wire, his company, the Daily Wire, has already within the very next day went to a circuit court. I believe it was the 6th Circuit Court, and they filed a lawsuit. And we saw 13 states, I think it was, that file lawsuits against to stop this immediately, and I'm glad that's been taking place. What took place over this past weekend, a federal court in Louisiana froze enforcement of Biden's mandatory vaccine orders for the private sector workers until the court can hear the arguments. So already the brakes have been put on this. And I guess what I would say right now is, if you have an employer that's starting to talk about, hey, we might have to go that route, I would say you want to, if you're getting pressured, you don't know what to do, I'd say is if you can just hold off and say, well, I'm thinking about it, or I'm working through this, but you need to let this play out through the courts, because this is unconstitutional. And Biden's, or whoever's running the administration right now, what their end game was doing this. In fact, they said, well, it's going to take place in it's going to be effective, this rule OSHA's setting up will take effect on January 4th. Why, you may ask? Well, one, if they did it right now, why don't they? If it's a big emergency, why aren't they doing it right now? Well, let's see. We got Thanksgiving coming up, and Christmas, and right now, what are we in the midst of? Ships. Thousands of ships on the water waiting to unload their goods, and nobody's here to unload them because of workers shortages in that arena. the supply chain is almost coming to a screeching halt. So they know that there would be an outcry if they tried to implement that right now. So they'll wait till January. And then the other aspect of this plan of whoever's running the White House says, well, wait a minute, and that's why you heard Biden say, well, we see what the court said, but employers, you still can carry on, keep pushing. Yes, you want to set this up. So what the emphasis will be is how many people can we get vaccinated right now before January 4th. And that's why Biden has said this week, oh, yes, I heard the stay, but employers carry on, you implement what I'm telling you to implement. But I say, if you're a worker and there may be some pressure, I'd hold off until there is a ruling. And that's why that was good that there is a halt from the federal court to put a stay right on that. But that's the Biden plan, is to just, hey, we'll move it to January and we'll try and get as many people vaccinated, have the employers push to get as many people in their workers to get vaccinated. But I say, if at all possible, you don't want to. If you don't want to, you wait till the ruling, until there is a decision from the courts, because this is unconstitutional and it will be blocked. It's just a matter right now is Biden's trying to get as many people forced into taking this jab because of his so-called edict. But if at all possible, you hold off and let this play through the courts, because it will be struck down. Talking about Biden again, or what's been going on in the nation, inflation continues to surge. Last month, with prices rising more expected, this inflation is going to continue to rise. In fact, what they're saying right now is that it's the fastest pace in more than 30 years as companies grapple with the snarled, as I mentioned, the snarled supply chain, and what we're seeing happening in the West Coast there with all those ships out there waiting to get unloaded because of labor shortages. And the Feds just this past week reported that, yes, there's definitely inflation is hitting hard. The Department of Labor, or the Labor Department's Consumer Price Index, which measures the basket of goods and services, as well as energy and food costs, jumped 6.2% in October from earlier last year. So it's gone up 6.2% in a year. And this all, when you start thinking about inflation, and which we can see, you go to the store, grocery store, department store, you go get gas, you name it, anything you're purchasing right now, you're seeing it go like that. And again, we've got goods that are waiting to come into the country, and there's not enough workers to get the supply chain moving, and they're talking about 2 years plus to really get to start to get caught up. And that's if Biden has regulations and to free up and not to put the brakes on this country, because I mean, you can look at what's been taking place in the nation as far as the policies go that have hindered. When you start talking about I didn't even mention, I talked about food prices, and you look around, everything's going up, but they're also talking about, 30% higher energy costs, fuel costs. If you want to heat your home this winter, they're talking about you're going to pay 30+% higher to heat your home over the winter. So all this is right at Biden's doorstep in what he's been doing, shutting down pipelines, not just the XL pipeline, but others, and going for this crazy Green New Deal. We're going to supply the nation's energy with windmills and solar panels. And we know that's a failed recipe because it hasn't worked in other parts of the world. But again, you just wonder why is this guy at the White House, driving us into this inflationary management under his watch. And you shake your head and say, we see what's going on. But no, he wants to blame the American people not being smart enough because they don't understand, the supply chain. Yes, we can say one thing. The American people can say one thing. Under President Trump, we weren't seeing supply chain issues. We had a president that had this economy rolling, and I guarantee you, if President Trump was here right now, there would be emphasis on continuing the economic growth and the economic success that the American people were feeling, where there was incentive to go to work and to increase. There was increased opportunity for people. If you wanted a job, you could get a job. Now we have an administration that is giving incentives not to work. And many of those incentives are still in place for people to stay home. And President Trump would have made sure, as some of the governors said that no, we're not paying you to stay home. And they took away some of those like that $300. They removed that. And how that works, once that was removed, those states that implemented that and said no, we're not paying that out anymore, wow, the employment started to increase, and now people didn't have the incentive to stay home, but they had an incentive to go back to work. So again, we see failure that's been taking place over this past year, and is culminating right now with the inflation going sky high. And folks, that when you start talking about raising taxes, if Biden had said, I'm going to be raising your taxes next year, he might have not been elected. But inflation is ultimately a tax that can be a crippling tax. So we see what's been going on here, and right now the economists are not optimistic of turning this thing around. Which brings me to some of the Biden polls. Biden's approval rating has dropped to 38%, according to Quinnipiac University. The survey also shows that 64% said Biden should not run for re-election in 2024, including 28% of those that responded that way were Democrats. So now we're seeing, these are cratering polls, but again, you just wonder who's running the White House, because they haven't swerved after this election. It's still full steam ahead, and they haven't changed direction one iota. So, and I believe that, this administration, the Bidens, know that it's done. I mean, they're done. That they won't. They know that there's not gonna be another term for Joe Biden. But hey, I guess they're gonna go left, and they're going harder left, and we'll see what some of the fellow Democrats that are up for their seats. They're up for another in 2022. They're running, and they're vulnerable if they aren't going to start putting back and pushing back and putting the brakes on, like Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. And we've seen right now that they have been a roadblock at this point when it comes to this Green New Deal agenda, and they're heading down the road to bankrupt America. So there'll be more Democrats that are going to be speaking up and saying, "Wait a minute, let's hold off here. Let's delay some of these decisions when it comes to this infrastructure bill." So we'll see how that plays out. We'll see if more and more Democrats start speaking up and saying, "Wait a minute, we can't go down this road." But again, when it comes to Biden administration, and I mentioned, I just talked about Joe Biden's polling. Kamala Harris is even worse. So they're not happy. Some of the Democrats aren't happy with Joe, and Kamala is even lower when it comes to approval rating. So I'd like to, at this point, I'd like to follow up here. We've got a couple of videos. I've got Tucker Carlson will be talking and interviewing with Candace Owens, and bringing out some of the things that's been going on in the nation regarding Joe Biden's Build Back Better. And I've got a better motto. Building bad bigger is more accurate, because it's a failure. But Tucker interviews Candace, and she shares a bit about that Green New Deal agenda. And we'll be hearing from Ron DeSantis and what's been going on, and talking to what Joe Biden is trying to push on Florida. So here, take a look.